Okay, well, welcome to CST 163, and it's Thursday, April 18th. I see David online. I don't know if anybody else is, but you'll be watching the video if you're not online. So, welcome. David, you want to give me a thumbs up that you can hear me okay? Okay. See if I can keep the chat open for a little while. So what I know you've been working on chapters 2 and 3. We're wrapping up. We're not going to cover as much of Excel as I would like to, but this is such an abbreviated course that chapter 3 is the last chapter we're going to do, and then we're going to flip over and do PowerPoint starting next week. So if you go onto my EMCC, you will see that there are some PowerPoint chapters that will start up next week. And I might spend just a couple of minutes before the end of today's class, and we'll cover a little bit of that. But what I really wanted to do, Excel is such an important program that I didn't want to leave it without really spending some time on formulas, because that's where the real power comes from. I mean, it's great that you can make lists for what you want to get at the grocery store, and that you can have all of your CDs and your music files and your whatever it is that you want to catalog. Maybe you're keeping track of payroll. You could be keeping track of inventory. You can do lots of things with Excel, but so much of what makes it powerful is the use of formulas. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I will try to remember to share this particular reference sheet that I'm going to be working on today, so you can go play with it or take a look at it. But I just put together a quick, we've got basically this. Basically, we've got a month-by-month yearly thing for rent, phone, and utilities. And the rent is just in there, and it switches up to a different amount elsewhere. The phone, just flat rate. We're on a contract. We pay $97.35. It gets us 2 lines each month and voicemail service. So cool. But we need to bring that down. And if you recall, when you're in a cell that has numbers in it, you've got this little box at the lower right corner. And if I grab that, I can just drag it down, and it fills in everything underneath it. Similarly, if I took something like January, which Excel understands is a it's a one in a series, and if I do this, it will automatically increment those as we go along. We do that also for, if I had spelled it out completely as January. I do January and then drag this down, it's going to change it to the full months. Kind of cool. Do notice that the rent goes up starting in August. Hey, it's part of our lease agreement. And the lease agreement, they have it set that our utilities are 10% of whatever the current rent is. It's not a very realistic way of doing it, but I wanted to just be able to do some percentages. So if we go down, you'll see in cell B, and I don't think I can make this any bigger. I can make all of this bigger, but I can't make the formula bar up above any larger. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look at this page with formulas on it. And I know this was one of your homework assignments, but it's important to know that you can do this, because it's also important to know when you're looking at an Excel page, where are their formulas and where are their data? And that's 2 completely separate things. So I can get there 2 different ways. I can do control and the back hat. Well, what is it? I don't even know what you call it. It's underneath the tilde on your keyboard. And now what we have is any place that there are, formulas, like right here, B3, and notice B3 is highlighted and D1 is highlighted. If I go to here, it shows a sum of those, although you'll notice that's an incorrect formula. We'll come back to that in a second. And then if I do control, it's like a single apostrophe, single quote, but it's a backwards quote. And we go back to this. So if you can't see what the formula looks like, or you need it larger or whatever else, you can do that. Now notice when I'm in a cell, if that happens to you, so what I just did was I clicked in here, I'm in the formula. So that I got there by double clicking inside cell D3 in this case. And that just opened up the formula for that one cell. And I can now see the formula in here. But if I click anywhere else, like here, oh, hey, it didn't do it. Yay, never mind. There. So I can change it if one of the components was highlighted. And you'll find this, it'll drive you crazy every time you do it, but it doesn't happen all the time. I'm going to hit escape before I leave this box. Before I leave D3, just going to hit escape, and it's going to go back to the original one. So I didn't save it. If I had gone to the end, I want to hold on a second. I want a different number. We'll just pick, 25. So if I want to change D1 to 25, I do this. See, and it takes the F8 value, and notice how I'm at the end of the formula. Equals B3 times F8. If I hit return, it changes the formula. Now, two ways I can fix it. I could just do a Control Z, or I could open it again and do this and click back where it belonged and hit enter. No. Okay. Didn't like that. Oh, sorry. Hit the wrong one. I'm doing the wrong thing. All right, so we want B3 times that. Phew. There we go, back to normal. Get rid of this little 25. So again, the simplest formulas are simply, it's like doing algebra. Equals this times that, equals this plus that, equals this divided by that. And you just do it by, the easiest way is to click into a cell, start with an equal sign. And then whatever you want to do, so equals B, we're in 8, so I'll just do B8 plus C8 plus D8. Now D8's empty, but it's fine to have that in a formula. And that's going to equal 1,097 and 37. Hey, Ken. Hi. David, was that you correcting my inability to find the 10% earlier? Sorry, my throat's a little off today, but now let's go back to, Ken, I muted you. If you need to talk, just unmute it or type it, because I had some feedback on your end. If I want to extend this formula, remember all of this, it's just data, but this is a formula, and I can grab it and just drag it down, and it will not auto-populate. So who knows why? Anybody? Yeah, it's the formula. The formula stayed accurate to what we had started with. So let's go talk a little bit about relative, absolute, and mixed reference. So a relative reference, it's just going to point to a particular cell. Now, these have been modified. This is actually an apostrophe, a single quote equals B3. What that does in Excel is it tells it to treat it like text, because otherwise it doesn't show up like that. If I just do equals B3, I'm going to get the value in B3. So if I want to see, if I want to just show you the formula equals B3, I have to put a little half a quotation mark in front of it. So a relative reference will move, the B and the 3 will change if you copy the formula. So let's try this again. Well, actually, if you look here. So this is B3 times D1. This is B4 times D2. But D2 is a word called utilities. Doesn't work. This one is B5, which is here, times this one, which is D1. So what's happening is B is going down, which we want it to do, but we always want it to stay pointing at the 10%. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into this formula, and we're going to say we always want it to look at the value in D1. And I can either put the $ before the D, it doesn't matter in this case, but I want it to stay in the top cell in row D. So everything else I stay the same. B3, it's going to go down each time I move down in the column. I want it to reference the rent column as it goes down in that month, but I always want it to reference the 10% at the top. And this is called an absolute reference. And now if I grab this and I drag it down, I'm going to get either 100 or 110 because the rent went up. So hopefully that makes sense. I always like to do something like this, where, you know what, let's be even better than that. We're going to grab the table, and we are going to go to, where is it? I can't tell you how fast I lose this. I do an awful lot of work in Google Sheets, and they keep it in different places for each one. There we go, format as table. So it's this one right here. I'm in the home tab, format as table, and then it gives me the options here. So I can pick kind of a, then it asks me, what do I want it to apply to? Since I already had the table I wanted highlighted, you'll see that it's going to highlight between A2, which is right up at the top, all the way down to E14. It's using absolute references. So that's what all the $ indicate. It also has the option that my table has headers, because there are headers: rent, phone, utilities, and total due. So I'm going to hit OK, and that just did a really nice job of sorting that. Now you'll notice when I've done that, it also gives me a chance to sort. I don't need to sort, because do I really want to sort January through December alphabetically? Probably not. And in this case, there's not much else that I'd want to do. Now, maybe if these were regions or salespeople or clients or orders or whatever, and I wanted to sort from the largest to the smallest, or I wanted to sort them from the earliest date to the last date, then I could take advantage of these sorts. Now, I don't like this because it's really hard to read, so I'm just going to go pop in and make it a little easier to see the text. So hopefully what you saw is that we grabbed the table, we went up to format as table, and then picked one of the options that we liked. Okay. couple of other things. You should have done this in your homework in a couple places. If you need to insert dates and times, so when paid, I don't know, and notice it just expand that. Wasn't that nice? It recognized that we wanted to add to the chart. If I didn't want it to do that, I can undo it. So I still have my when paid, but I undid the auto formatting. I'm going to go put it back because I kind of like it. So it is April, and we paid our bill today. So I'm going to put in equals, and I can either do today, which is just the date, or I can do now, which is the date and time. I'm okay with just doing this. When you see the double or the open and close parentheses with nothing inside it, what that is this is a formula that doesn't require any input, but you still need to put those. If I do this, well, that's interesting. Now, Control Z. See, I'm going to go back. And I'm going to, so it auto-populated the entire thing. I don't want that. So I undo it. I do a Control Z to undo the auto-formatting and just leave what I did. Because next month, I'm going to go in here and equals, whatever it is. The only problem with this is that if you open this tomorrow, I'm trying to remember if it keeps the, I think because it's today, this may continuously change. So this may not be a good use of that. In this case, it'd probably just be easier to put in 4/18/2019. But that's how you would use today. I think probably a more appropriate place would be to put it at the top of a form that you're sending out today. And just to show you, if we did now equals now, so you get the date and time together. The reason these aren't doing anything is, again, at the very beginning, there's a single quote mark, which tells Excel that I don't want you to do the formula. It's not a formula, it's not a number, it's text. So that's why a lot of these things you can see is because they have that single quote in front of them. All right. So I've got a formula here, which equals the sum. If I click on this, you'll just see it's the sum of these three cells together. And you'll notice that it's B3 and D3. If I wanted to move that down the row, I want it to stay, in the row that it's in. So sum of B, D, C, D, E, F, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7. So I don't need any absolute references here. I'm just going to hit return. I'm going to grab this, drag it down, and say it would do that. Piece of cake. Before I do that, I want to show you, there's a number of errors that you're going to get, and I've got them highlighted down here at the bottom of the page. One is a divide by 0. So if I go in here and I go, I don't know, equals equals B6 divided by, and pick an empty cell, because an empty cell is considered to be 0. So I'm going to divide it by B15. And we'll get a divide by 0. In mathematics, you cannot divide by 0 because the answer is infinite. So if you get that, that's the problem for what's showing up. You need to go and look at what your, whatever value you have underneath the division is coming out to be 0. So if we look at this particular one, we're getting an error that says name we look down here, that says that the function name is incorrect. And I realize, some with an extra M is a little more obvious, but some of the names of some of the different formulas are a little longer, and it's a little easier to get, a mistake in it. Now, there's one down here that says count blank. Well, what if you just misspelled count blank? You got a lot more letters to pick from. You're typing along, and you make a mistake. So if you've spelled the actual name of the formula incorrect, you're going to get a name error. I just correct it. There it is. All right. If we do something and leave a parameter out, now let's do one of these. We're going to do count if equals count if, and I need a range and I need a criteria. So let's look above it in B3 to B14. So that's the range we're going to look in, and then we're going to close it. Oh, well, that one says too few. So let's do comma there. Well, if we look at that, I'm trying to get it to do an NA, and it should, but it's not letting us leave one out in this case, and it's not letting us leave it empty. But these are the two. I'll just put in 1100. So the two parameters in count if are the range, which is right here, and the criteria that you're looking for. And this should return 5, because there are 5 values in that range that equal 1100. So David, used for official documentation on pivot tables. Can you elaborate? I'm not sure which one you're referring to. If we did something like equals D14, so do sum of D2 to D5. And so when you include both text and numbers in a formula like sum, it will sum or average or max or min. It will only focus on the ones that are numbers and ignore the rest. So that's why it's actually, when we ask it for a sum over an area that's got mixed data in it, it will come back with the ones that are just the numbers. On the other hand, I divided it by a text, D2, and you'll see that it gave me the value error, which means the data was entered in the wrong type. Well, you can't divide by text. Reference, what'll happen there is that you need a, see what happens. We do this times D1 We make this into Bob. All the values go wrong, so the data is just the wrong type. Oh, good enough for now. Talked about this. Just going to go ahead and drag that down. Down here, we could do equal sum of and we'll see, that didn't work. So, oh, yeah, that's why. So this summed rent, I keep forgetting that sometimes we'll do that. Because we set this up as a table and we have headers defined, it has renamed this cell. It knows that this is now rent, this is phone. So if I want to sum this, I need to change this to phone. And change this and it's going to put E3 to E14. So there, we have the total rent, total phone, total utilities, total due, and a column to do when we paid for it if we want it. Let's look at count. So count, and the easiest way to find out what a particular function does is just type it in, and you'll see, and I know it's probably hard for you to read this, but if you do this along, count the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. So I'm going to do count B2 to B14. So notice I included the header, and we get 12. Count A counts all the cells in that range that are not empty. So we're going to do B2 to B14, and we get 13. Because count A doesn't care whether or not it's a number, a formula, or a text. Count A is only looking for numbers. Count blank, well, equals count blank B3 to B14, and it comes back with 0. But of course, if we came up here and did this, there's now one blank cell. And that'll show up down here in the blank cells. One of the cool things too is, of course, you don't have to just stay in one row. You could do this across several. So now we're looking at all of these. And see, so that's you would think this would be a counted as blank, but it's not, because this is a 0. Because when you take 0 times 10%, you still get 0. And 0 is a number, it's not a blank cell. So if we wanted to count anything that was 0 or blank, then we could use a count if. Now we're going to do equals count if. We've got to give it a range. And we're going to make it B3 to D14. Same range as we just used. And then we have to tell it what's the criteria. And I'm going to make the criteria less than 0.01. Anything less than a penny. There we go. Still only 1. I don't want number, money. Okay, so let me tell you what I just did. So I have two things that I'm looking for. And the count blank was only looking for cells that were completely empty. And actually, I could change this. Equals 0. So what I'm going to do down with the count if is I'm going to count every cell that's 0. That would be the case for D7. And I am going to count any empty cells, meaning there's nothing in them whatsoever. And that's going to be looking for just two sets of quotes with nothing in between them. That's how Excel and Google Sheets looks for empty cells. So when I add those two together, so I'm counting two things and I'm going to add them and I get my 2. Now, if I went up here and I did this and just put a 0 in, now there are no blanks, but there are still 2 that are either empty or blank. Zeros are blank. Questions? Oh. Kenny, use the error check. I don't know which thing sorry, sometimes I don't see the comments when you make them, so I'm not sure which thing you're looking for or referring to. Oh, okay. Yeah. Count if S counts the number of cells specified by a given set of conditions or criteria. So criteria range 1, I don't even think I've used this one. So I'm going to go, whenever you have a formula that you haven't used much and you need to know how to use it, notice down below you get the little help that says what goes into this. And if you mouse over the actual formula, in this case it's count ifs, and I click it, it will open up a help window. I'm hoping you can see this because it's still part of Excel. I'm not sure if Zoom sees it as the same thing or not. And you'll be able to look at the syntax. So criteria ranges, criteria range 1, it's required. Oh, you can't see it? All right. Give me a second. All right, so you should see it now. And this is what pops up when you open up one of those little formulas. All right. And so in the case of count ifs, you can go in here and set criteria range number 1. It's the first range in which to evaluate the associated criteria. So, it goes criteria range 1, criteria 1, criteria range 2, criteria 2. And you can keep doing that, as you go through. I haven't really used it too much, but. So this is a simple one, count ifs, 1 range, 1 criteria. Here's 1 range and 1 criteria, a second range and a second criteria. Now, in this particular case, you could have done B2 to C5 because they're 2 adjacent ranges. But if they weren't, if the ranges weren't right next to each other, so you couldn't just expand it to cover both, maybe you need to count everything in row B and everything in row D, but not C, then you have to use it as separate. All right, let me go back. Share it, Excel. Okay, we should be back. So in this case, if we did B3 to D14 and the criteria were empty, and we're going to look at B3 to D14, and we're going to look for equals 0, and then close it. Wow, doesn't like that. Should have come back up with 2. I'll have to research that one. I've probably just done something wrong. All right, how about if statements? So an if statement is if one thing, then you do something else. So if, I'll do it up top, hold on. So right here, I'm gonna make, instead of just doing B7 times, actually I'll do it right here. Instead of doing B3 times D1, I'm gonna do if B3 is not 0, then I want it to be B3 times D1, else I'm going to just make it empty. And in this case, if this is empty, that becomes empty. I put 1,000 in here, then it fills it. This is really useful when you're trying to eliminate errors in other parts. So if I take this, it's already filled it all the way in. I'm not used to Excel just automatically moving formulas through everything, but it has. If error is a little bit different. So you have a formula that under certain circumstances giving you an error, like, you know, number value wrong, reference value wrong, divide by 0 wrong, all that kind of stuff. You can do a if error and have that give you something different. I'll set something up. So let's just say all right, daily cost. So we're going to take E equals E 3 divided by I'm just going to leave it simple, 31. Someplace there's a formula that probably tells us, you know, the days in each month, and I'd have to go look it up. Now, so we've got all of this going through here, just dividing it out by 31 days. Obviously, that's not accurate the way it is because some days have more or fewer days. But what happens if we have this? Oh, I know what I'm doing. Hold on. Days in month. There we go. We'll kill it yet. All right. Now we can go back and actually do this more intelligently. So instead of being divide by 31, we're going to divide it by B3. So now you can see, you know, we actually pay more in February because the month is shorter, but we have the same cost. And it's, why is that not working? Oh, right, and then it got more expensive. So what happens if we make a mistake? We put in a 0, then we get a divide by 0 error. But we can also do this. So we go back and edit this, and we say if error, and if this is now, that's not how I would do it, but error that. I should have thought this one out. I mean, if we do that, so the problem here is we do if error F16, F18, what did you do? You know, if there is an error, then you're going to just, you know, give us something and it's, well, there's an error there. Problem is, if we use that same formula, well, it is doing it. All right, well, that is what we want. I could also do the exact same thing if sorry, if B6 is 0, then error else. So in this case, with an if, the logical test is B6 equal to 0? If it is, then do an error, otherwise do B6. So that still gives us an error and still gives us all the other stuff that we want. So if error, if can both work. I'm going to come down here for a minute. So we talked about relative, absolute, and mixed reference. So a relative, no dollar signs. Absolute, with the dollar signs. You can also get mixed, where you've got some dollar signs. Remember, there's the column and there's the row. Both can get either relative or absolute. If they're both absolute, then no matter where you move a formula around on the page, it will stay locked to that cell that you were looking for. If you only lock the column, then you can take that formula and move it to a different column and it will follow. So that's for sideways movement. If you lock the row, it's gonna stay, even though the formula goes up and down, it's gonna stay locked to the same row. So what I did down here, I'm gonna do some of this stuff right here. Concatenate allows you to add text together. Text allows you to turn a number value into a text. Left allows you to cut off a left section of a string. And if you're not familiar with the term, in computer science, a string is a text value. So we can cut off part of the left, part of the right, take something out of the middle, and we can measure, and we can also find. So a good example, take a look at this 2003 hyphen Tom Bickford. In a find, I can do find the text B, and I want to find it within H29. So the capital B is, and I don't think it does capital or lowercase, is in position 11. So if I wanted to just take Bickford, then I need to take from position 11 to the end. And I can do that by doing, let's do the length first. Length of H29. So the entire thing is 18 long, and I want to take everything from the B over. And B is in the 11th position. Now, if your math is really good, then we need to do right of H29, and we're going to take the it's going to be, in this case, it's going to be num H29 minus find the H29 plus 1. Almost. What did I mess up? One. So we got the number. This right here should give us the number of characters, which is the total length minus where the B is plus 1. Oops, sorry. Find B and H29. B and H29 plus 1. What am I missing here? Function name incorrect. Oh, I'm sorry. Duh. I was fine. If you haven't figured it out, what I did wrong was num is supposed to be length. There we go. So basically what you've just seen is that you can use a lot, you can add stuff together, which is what I did up here. So we've got a number in the account number, my first name, my last name, and then I concatenated D29 and E29. And you have to be careful, so equals concatenate. If I just do D29 plus E29, no, it's not. Oh, sorry. It's supposed to be C and D. There we go. Why are you wrong? You're not wrong. Concatenate. C29, E29. Oh, no, yeah, D and right the first time. Oh, jeez. My apologies. Concatenate requires commas between that, not, there we go. So notice how I took two text values, Tom, Bickford, I concatenated them together, which just means to join text. That's all it means. And by joining those together without a space, because Tom doesn't have a space, Bickford doesn't have a space, you put them together, there's no spaces. So if you look at this formula here, it actually concatenated three things. D29, a single set of quotes with one space in between them, and then E29, the last name. And that gave us Tom Bickford with a space in between it. I also can concatenate, in this case, I concatenated C29, which was a number, and Excel now understands that if you're concatenating a number, that it is automatically going to convert it to a text. I could do that, I used to have to do that using the text command, and I'll show you it doesn't change anything. And then I added a space, hyphen space, and then my first and last name. So that gave us the 2003 space, hyphen space, Tom Bickford. Oop. I see that there still needs to be a space in between the two names. There we go. I could also, like I said, I could just go in for that C. There we go. Oop. Text format value. All right, I'm going to leave it alone. I haven't used text in a little while. So we've quickly shown how to use find, length, mid, right, left, and we use text. Let me just use equals text of C29 format text. And there it goes. Now, I know it doesn't look any different between these two, but this is a number and this is a text. Now I could go back in here. Now that I've gotten my head on straight, text C29, comma 0.0 is the format I want to use. And there we go. Doesn't look any different. Like I said, Excel does that automatically now, but there may be times you need to convert a number to a text. You can also go the other way around. We had talked early in the week or last week. So if we had a zip code, and as we've said here in Maine, sometimes you'll turn it into a text and do 04401. Otherwise, it shows up as without the leading 0. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'll show you the text formula in a second. Well, here, I'll show you. So it's just text. The cell you want to turn from a number into text. And it could even be the output of a formula. So if we wanted to show 13,370.85 cents as text rather than a number, then we can do that. But then we have to tell it what format do we want. So let's try that with, going to go C29. We're going to pick this instead. Oh, sorry. Now, so it's giving us just a general number. All right, I'm going to have to go look. Number formats. Okay, currency. If we want it to show as currency, I actually have to do this. There we go. So that's, sorry. So, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the F15. So it's not quite so confusing. So if I want to use text on a particular on currency, I have to put the cell reference, in this case F15, and then what format do I want to pull out? I couldn't remember. I don't use it often enough. So I clicked on the text, clicked text in a little pop-up that shows up just beneath any formula, and opened up the dialog box or the help window and went down to formats available for using that. And I'll let you do that because otherwise I have to stop the share, switch the share. So again, here we have a text. Here we have a the number format for our zip code. And we could also do equals what was that? If we want to do turn a text, so we're going to go to G33. So that's the text representation of a number. And we're going to turn it back into a number, and we get that 4401 again. So we can turn text numbers into real numbers, and we can take real numbers and turn them into text. It all depends on what you need. And some things, are more useful than others. Okay. I think I've walked through an awful lot of this stuff, and I know it's probably a lot to assimilate. Ken, is there anything else you'd like to see before we move on to anything else? All right, just give me a second. Yeah, so Ken asked if we're going to be able to reference anything on an Excel test or the final test, and you can use anything built into Excel. So any of the help functions that are available in Excel, you'll be able to use. So you'll be able to open up those little, how do I format this, go up to the, how do I miss just the plain old help section on Excel, but you can do that. You can't go to Google, you can't go to YouTube. How's that? Those you can't use on the test, but you can use anything built into Excel. I'm just looking up real quick to see where we're. So do on the 23rd is chapter 3 in Excel. That's our last Excel, and we're going to start next Tuesday on PowerPoint, but the first PowerPoint's not due until next Thursday. So unless somebody has questions, and I'm going to go through it once more because I just want to make sure that all of you are familiar with how we get help in Excel. So there's a couple of choices. Let's say you wanted more information on concatenate. I can go up here and I can type in concatenate. I can click get help on concatenate. If I click that, I get the little pop-up window, which you can't see unless I do this. All right, now you can see all of the help on concatenate, and I can get help on the function. There's a concat function, which we're not talking about. And there's a text function, so there's some similar ones in here. So I'm just going to go to the concatenate function, and here it is. It tells us about it. It shows us how we can use it. It shows us how we can use both straight text, like stream population 4, and then actual cell references. And those cell references, normally they'd be text, but Excel can now take a numerical value, turn it into text for you. In this case, they've just taken 2 cells and they put a space in between them. You've got to have at least one text value. Otherwise, you can't concatenate anything. I don't believe it will balk at you if you just do concatenate hello. But if you do concatenate hello, how are you in 2 different fields, it'll put them together. So all of that's available for you to do. There's some best practices. There's some common problems associated with that. So, and then there are related functions that you can pull up. Oh, maybe I need to go look at the text value. All of that, so you can take advantage of it. Any questions? Turn the chat back on. All right. I think we're all set. I'm going to call it early. We've been on for a little over an hour. That's what I wanted to get covered today. Hopefully, everybody will have a chance to watch this. Oh, go ahead, Ken. Did I get your email? Good question. I could go look that up without anybody else seeing it. Isn't that cool? Mm-mm. All right. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Hold on a second. I'm gonna